Oh, well, the 44 million, I mean, that would have been a non-goer. And when we talked about it up in the group, that would have been an asset purchase for me. But then I explained to the guys, okay, you want to do an asset purchase. And let's just say, all things being equal, which they never are, you could have done an asset purchase. But the bank, would have had assets tied to their loans. So let's say you had a big manufacturing plant. That would have been tied to a loan or part of loans. You'd have machinery, whatever you have. There's hospital beds, buildings. They're going to be tied to loans. So even when you want to do an asset purchase, it's going to be limited by the covenants that are in the loan documents, that the assets that are pledged. Remember, there's asset lending and cash flow lending. So most if not all the assets are going to be pledged against various loans. So you're going to have to get the bank to sign off. So let's say this company's got $100 million in assets, 40 of which aren't tied to loans, so you can buy directly the 40. But the 60 million are tied to loans, so you have to get the bank's permission for them to be able to be released. And they may or may not release them. And most likely they won't release them. And if they do release them, you're going to have to replace them with other kind of collateral or your personal guarantee. And what do I say? A guarantor is a fool with a pen. But to get started, I mean, almost everybody guarantees, myself included. I do it myself. But when you have nothing, and you're guaranteeing 50 million. I mean, literally not. I mean, it's still not. Unfortunately, you got a few shekels, and so you got 8 million or 12 million, and in the worst case scenario, you think they're just coming to sweep all your money that you earned over 10, 20 years, and that does happen. So it's not like I'm not discounting it. Don't think lightly of the personal guarantees, but for the rest of you and for the YouTubers that don't even have enough to come here. So, I mean, you might as well just sign any motherfucking thing they put in front of you. And take a revolver, load it, and put it in your mouth. Metaphorically speaking, of course. You got nothing to lose. You can't fall off the bottom. You can't fall off the bottom. You got that, YouTubers? If you don't like how I talk, please. In the new year, don't listen to me. Please don't bother me. But a 44, would be a huge red flag. Because now if you took the company with you got to absorb that negative 44 million. And most likely you don't have 44 million positive. I wouldn't do it anyway, even if I had it. But let's say you got 20 million, and then so now you're going to absorb 44, and so that means you're going to go from a positive balance sheet to a negative balance sheet. And I haven't really looked. I've never looked at Amazon's balance sheet, actually. So I don't know if there's, because they never make any really money.
How about with IP?
Yeah, but then they don't have any retained earnings then. So what's on their balance sheet?
It would be the would be all their fulfillment centers, I would think.
Goodwill.
Well, the warehouses, the drones and all the shit they're doing. We've got a lot of trucks now. Like a lot of trucks for all the instant delivery.
Drones and planes. No, at least in the planes.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the Whole Foods real estate is like.
Yeah. Okay, so whatever they have on the balance sheet hasn't come through retained earnings. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bill?
Are we going to do a bit? Or am I just going to come?
Sure, I'll come up.
Yeah, we'll help out.
When you were a little late, Bill, they thought you were doing burpees. Huh?
I thought I went to go get our sheet.
Okay, those time release burpees?
Yeah. Slow mo.
Okay, so our case study was focused on Airbnb, Uber, and we looked more at the business model as a whole rather than any figures. So the Airbnb model is a two-sided model. So they take existing assets from everyday people that are already paying the insurances, the maintenance, and they're taking those inefficiencies in that model where you might be at work and not using it for a period of time, or there's some free space available which they then trade off with extra income for the people that have those assets. That was my particular.
And they asked me if I would enter into this thing with the castle, and I said no. So just to make sure everybody understands, this is not an advertisement for me to get on this program. Go ahead.
Okay. The other thing that was interesting is they realized that the whole image of the company is going to be very important to getting people on board and booking in the platform. No one wants to stay in a badly presented house. And they found that by instigating a professional photo service scheme, they were able to increase bookings dramatically because the presentation of the properties was so much better than previous. They actually flew out to New York, I think it was, to investigate that area. So the guys on the shop floor, if you like, were leading the way in increasing the visibility of the company. Very strong.
And then there was a lawsuit that came up from one of the ladies had a theft in her house and a break-in, and so they had bad press. So they were accused by the Y Combinator guy, founder, that they were doing false PR to take care of the problem. But what impressed me about them, this company, was that they were able to team up with an insurance company, the Lloyd's, and get 1 million insurance for each of the people that opened up their houses, so that they were covered with insurance. So they do care about their people genuinely that are offering up their homes for this deal.
Yeah. So what Rose was talking about is obviously one of the largest concerns on the part of everybody involved is that there would be unpleasant incidents, so to speak, from people staying in other people's homes. And we found surprisingly few incidents that were published, but a quick Google search covered the entire page in incidents from Adelaide, which is what Dan was referring to.
For real.
Yeah,
That's not made up.
the only crime we found was in Adelaide. and it's probably happened elsewhere. But I started looking at what they can do to grow from here, either through acquisitions or organically adding more services to their platform and leveraging their customer base for increased value. So basically, what I decided that they should be looking to do is roll up other inefficiencies in the travel process and, for example, develop some kind of tiered subscription-based model where if you are Airbnb Gold or Platinum, for example, then you have access to limos to and from the airport, access to a local concierge with your stay, and things like this to help segregate the client base and then lead to further marketing opportunities on that end. So I think that's...
The last one is the Abraham Lincoln effect. Is everybody... Well, maybe some of you haven't heard this, but like Abraham Lincoln, when he was losing in the war, he actually went down into the front lines, and he was getting bad information from his generals. And so he repeatedly went into the front lines and made his own decisions and then replaced the generals. And these guys did the same thing in New York City. New York City was really suffering, and they wanted to know why. So the founders went into New York City and stayed at all 24 of their properties that were being rented, found out there was a problem with the photos. They weren't high enough quality, and that launched their whole outsourcing video taking to high-quality professionals, and that changed the quality of the service, and it exponentially grew from there. So that was the last.
I thought that their Abraham Lincoln effect was they went down to the zoo in Adelaide. But YouTubers just type out zoo, Adelaide Zoo, and you know what I'm talking about. With the Google search. Okay, questions from these kids?
I have one comment because we've been looking into this as well. And there are some common things across those three platforms. So all of them, they have almost no assets. All of them, they are marketplaces where the users or sellers put their things. And all of them, they've been disruption in the market because they changed the game. So,
You mean the competition for them?
Yeah.
right, because the market before was totally different. That is after they started to offer these services. For example, when we think about the Airbnb, so the hotels, they lost the revenue. That is for all of them.
The market cap of Airbnb is greater than Hilton by far right now. And they own 0 hotels. So it's
No assets, yeah.
zero. So it's
the value
complete.
the subscription users.
What?
The values in this.
It's again software disrupting bricks. You know, it's a
Totally.
they have 0 investment in any property.
What kinds of risks to that model does legislation pose?
They're really kind of, risky habit also. Like Uber, in some countries they are even against the law. And in Poland, there been issues with this that they have no licenses. I think that in many countries was like that, but they are still able to manage this situation. So,
Ravi, how does this model compare with, say, your mortgage? Do you have to have a buy-to-let mortgage to do?
Oh yes, so a lot of these Airbnbs, if you're a buy-to-let landlord, let's say, a lot of mortgage companies do say that you want an AST for a long-term tenant for 6 months. That's a standard clause. If you start Airbnb-ing it, you're actually in breach of your mortgage terms,
Yes.
and possibly insurance terms as well. Because with insurance terms, they do say you can have a maximum of 3 tenants per year. London, they've started to restrict a lot of properties because of the use class. So you may have it might be different in Scotland, C1 or whatever it is, use class meaning a residential dwelling, but some will say, yeah, actually you need planning permission to convert this into a hotel because you've got people coming in and out. Another big problem that we're seeing with flats, so if you're in a block of flats, each flat owner has a leaseholder's memorandum where it will say it has restrictions. The developers are now putting restrictions into stuff like you cannot use Airbnb. It actually says use services such as Airbnb, using as hotel type things, service accommodation. You cannot use any of that. So if you buy that flat and put it on Airbnb, technically the freeholder of the building can actually collapse your lease and just take your flat. Even if you paid £500,000 for it, collapse, bang, take it away from you. So there are significant risks in it, but there's massive opportunities for apart hotels. So they've created a little culture where people don't want to stay in the nice. I don't know why people want to not stay in a hotel, but they want their own kitchen. I don't fucking know why either. They want their own kitchen kettle. So a market's actually is emerging out of it, where they're creating these big buildings, which are like apartments, but it's got the right use classes, the right lending, but they're not falling into the hands of the mom and pop businesses that want to make a couple of quid out of their house. It's actually falling into the big landlords, big portfolio.
No, isn't a couple of quid? Are these people making thousands a month, tens of thousands? I mean, what kind of a 3-bedroom house? You know, in a nice part of San Francisco. How much? I mean, is it a night?
The spread is around, I want to say 250% between the lease and what you can get for it on Airbnb, the arbitrage spread.
Yeah.
So if you were, a $2,000 a month apartment, it would be $3,500, $4,000.
But I heard somebody say they do this with penthouses.
But that's what the grossing does, because the servicing fees and all that kills it all anyway. So when you start looking at net, what you actually get net, it's a hell of a lot less. This is a model I do, by the way, so I'm not completely against it, but the people that want to
breaking the law and doing we believe that.
But in London as well, if you own your own house, you can only Airbnb it for a maximum of 90 days now. I don't know if they're bringing that up to Scotland, because it's exploding in Scotland. It's doing really well here. I know a lot of people doing making a shitload of money.
Is this a big market in the slum end of the property continuum? I mean,
Yeah, we do the Airbnb. Yeah, we do. So what are you presenting? Is it a deal or not?
No, there's no deal.
There's no deal. We're just presenting what this company is
No,
doing.
we were told to do a deal.
no, I told you. I told you. I mean, what do you got, a mouse in your pocket? You know? I mean, it was, he already threw everybody off when he said Delta. I looked out there and nobody knew what the fuck he was saying. You know.
Okay, so the next one we looked at was Etsy, which is a similar scenario, similar business model. They get their revenue streams in 3 different ways. One is, I'm not going to be able to remember them all now, but one, they charge a subscription to the sellers, I think. They have premium paid adverts to get your product up the listing, and then they take a commission on the sale price.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like eBay.
Yeah, pretty simple. It's a bit like Amazon and eBay, but for
Not quite, because eBay's an auction house.
okay, there's no
Mostly an auction house.
It's for crafts people,
Artists.
guys that can make bespoke knickknacks and things like that. Oh, bespoke. That's the 6,000% premium on stuff that's just personalised. They did really well. The key thing for me was they did really well on organic growth. They have 91% organic growth. I think their marketing spend was at $1 to $2. Yeah, per $100 spent, they only spent $1 to $2 on marketing. And they did that because they got in early with the market, the crafts people, and they helped them to promote selling their business, because the only way really you can do it is to open up a store on the high street or go to a market. So it's quite hard for the creators to sell the products. And in return, they found that the sellers would then promote Etsy on their Facebook or their social media feeds, and it was a nice cycle to really boost that organic growth.
I thought the organic was organic traffic, not paid traffic, SEO. Big difference.
Say that again. The organic.
They get 10,000 hits a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's not paid through AdWords. It's people going back the same time 90% of the time.
Yeah.
With organic, was my understanding what that meant.
With the organic meant was the sellers, 34% were coming back as return.
Yeah.
But return buyers, 34% were coming back, which apparently is a lot. And then the entrepreneurs that were selling, their stick rate was really, really super high. So that was the gasoline on the fire that helped that organic growth. And they only needed the $1 to $2 of marketing expense.
Yeah. And the thing about this was that this is the thing that they had. They attracted them through power selling. So they had a lot of tools for the merchants that were coming in to sell their art or craft. The ones that stayed the longest, those are the ones that really benefited from having the tools to sell their products online.
And I wanted to know how Rose could use this to sell, and then it came out voodoo dolls
pin doll.
and shit, and that was, and then she said,
Does it still look like Yoda?
What's that?
The pin doll.
I'm sure it would. it would have a little yarmulke on, sure, and everything. Yeah.
these dipshits on YouTube are going to think we're all racist. Perception is reality, kids.
And so, the fundamental, first of all, YouTube, that's for you. Secondly, the fundamental problem that they were solving is that there is obviously a huge amount of arts and crafts type people who, similar to the engineers that you were talking about, find the process of managing their business and growing their business to be, what was the life-sucking, soul-sucking? Yeah, that they're getting sucked by doing that kind of thing. And so Etsy essentially came along and democratized the process of business management for these folks in a way, and then it took off from there.